think I agree with you. I think Canelo's gonna, if they do fight, and if you talk about stand there and throw blow for blow, I think Canelo has the faster hands. I think he has the better combinations, and in that regard, I do see Canelo beating Triple G in the third fight, potentially even stopping him. But I think Triple G still has that X factor, and after seeing him bang against Murata, I am now a lot more curious to see if he can. He could potentially hurt Canelo. But with that being said, I still think Canelo's about to lose against Bivol.
I don't think that Canelo Triple G fight is going to be competitive. I think it may look like something in the first 4 rounds. It's going to be a feel-out process, and then Canelo's going to bust his ass. I think GGG's way beyond his prime. Canelo's went up and down the weight. It's done a lot. It's not going to be competitive. It's only even worth talking about because of the names. But outside of that, I'm not watching it.
Who just said that they think Canelo will lose to Bivol?
Yeah, that was Thomas.
You know what? I could see that happening as well. But Thomas, do you honestly think, say it's a close fight, it's a 7-5 or an 8-4 to Bivol, do you honestly think he's going to get the decision? Like with the history of what Canelo's the judging in Canelo fights have looked like in the past, particularly Floyd Mayweather fight where he got a draw and the first Golovkin fight.
No, you make a solid point. If it goes to decision, it goes to the decision. I think it was like the Tim Bradley and Pacquiao fight where we all knew who won, but Bradley got that decision. So,
but here's boxing is all about balance, whether it's justified or not. They had to make up for the third Pacquiao-Marquez fight that Pacquiao clearly lost to Marquez, but they gave Pacquiao the fight. Fans were outraged by it, so to balance it out, they gave that first Bradley fight to Bradley instead of Pacquiao. That's what that was, if we're being honest.
Yeah, but can anyone see Bivol stopping Canelo?
Not stopping, no. Honestly, I could see Bivol hurting Canelo, especially up to the head, because literally outside of Golovkin, the hardest puncher that Canelo would face to date would be in higher weight classes. I don't really foresee anybody super middleweight or lower really hurting Canelo. But I mean, Bivol, just with the punch accuracy, with the intent that he throws and punches with, I could see Canelo getting rocked a couple times, but laid out or stopped, I personally do not foresee that happening.
Does anyone here see Canelo taking a fight with Biabatev within the next 12 months? Or do you think what they'll do is wait 18, 24 months down the line and wait until he's just that slightly bit over the hill past it?
That fight is looking like 36 months plus for Canelo versus Beterbiev. No.
To be honest, Beterbiev is strong, and I think it'll be a good fight. I think Canelo, though, will I'm not really interested in saying it. I think Beterbiev's he's too slow. The only thing he has going for him is his sheer size, right? And I think Canelo just got too many tools, including his hand speed, that will give Beterbiev just too many problems. I think Bivol is, if anybody's gonna give Canelo problems, it's gonna be Benavidez and Bivol.
Do you think Bivol can get confidence from watching, I know it's 3 years ago now, but watching Kovalev and Canelo? Because, I don't know, maybe you guys saw it differently, but for a lot of people, and especially me, I saw that fight competitive up until the knockout.
No, absolutely. I mean, Kovalev was a taller, rangier fighter. He wasn't all he was doing was utilizing that jab, right, to keep him at bay. But Canelo, he took a steam off his punches. That wasn't the Kovalev we were used to seeing. I think to empower somebody like Bivol, I think Bivol already has his confidence. And like I said, if he shows up the way he's been fighting, with that European-esque style, the output, the power that comes with that, that's the type of style that gives Canelo problems. If you watch how he fought against, and I'm not saying that Bivol has the skill set as an Islam Lara or a Mayweather, but the distance, right, that they exuberated in those type of fights, you got that's what gives Canelo problems, is that distance. What Bivol does well is maintain that distance, right? Even if you would Triple G, when he was backing Triple G up in the second fight, if Triple G maintained his distance but kept the output and the power up, he could have won the fight. Now, when you got Canelo going against Bivol, he's going to try to press him with that same, and look to get those body shots, those big shots. Bivol's, he fights. His whole style is about knowing your distance, right? And letting your punches off from the distance. He never fights inside. And so I haven't seen any of his fights where he just started banging on the inside just because, right? He maintains his stamina through 12 rounds. That's the only reason I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, for right now, I think that we're on a pause, or just fights are just not happening right now, but still just in between rounds waiting for the next fight to happen. No one's seeing anything on their screen right now, right?
Yeah, I really thought the Canelo-Kovalev fight was competitive.
To be honest, yeah, I thought Kovalev was just nicking the rounds with straight punches. Canelo was just strutting into ring. I don't think Canelo looked very good that night. Fantastic finish, but yeah, I remember scoring it. Sometimes I'm hesitant to talk about American fights because I'm watching them at 5 o'clock in the morning, and obviously I generally don't watch a lot of fights back. So sometimes at that time of night, you may be a little bit off. But from what I remember, I think I had it. Kovalev was 1 round down or 1 round ahead. He was definitely within the fight for me.
You don't think so, Matt?
I'm kind of torn in between. I know that he went up to 175, and that was a big, challenge for him just to go up there. So I gotta give him his respect in that aspect. But I'm not sure. Part of me feels like he kind of carried the fight a little bit. Like I think he could have got him out there a little sooner. But I don't know. I watched it twice. I haven't watched it since then. That's the feeling that I got from it. I'm not saying that, and I don't want to say that I think it was rigged. I don't think it was rigged at all. But I feel like I got the same, when I watched that fight, I got the same feeling I got when I watched Floyd Mayweather fight Conor McGregor. And I understand that Conor McGregor's not a real boxer. But the point I'm trying to make is that when Floyd fought Conor, I felt like he could have knocked him out sooner. But to keep it looking competitive and keep it interesting, you kind of give people, the illusion that this person has a chance before you actually get him out of there. You know what I mean? And that's the same feeling I got when I watched that fight, personally. But that's just me.
On the Mayweather, I think Mayweather went in with a game plan, where Canelo went in, he probably had a game plan, but I think it was different with the Mayweather and McGregor. Mayweather went in. We never see Mayweather go in with his hands up, right, and move and walk a fighter down. I think his whole game plan from the jump was let him throw himself out, shoot to the body to help him gas himself out. And then once you get towards the later rounds, pick it up and take him out. I think that was, anytime I tell people to look at a game plan, that fight is as clear as day. Where Canelo's, it's like, if he was doing that, you know, you ask, like, what was the game plan from the jump?
Yeah, that's valid. That's valid, because taking Conor into deep water was definitely a great game plan. So, yeah, that's valid.
Just out of interest, as everyone here is from the US, I presume anyway, did like boxing fans in America give Caleb Plant much of a chance? Because over here, a lot of people were saying, oh, he's got the skills of Billy Joe Saunders, but the size of a light heavyweight, and he was going to really give Canelo problems. I'm just wondering what like the American consensus was.
Those that were not blindly loyal to Canelo did give Caleb Plant some chance of doing something. Honestly, I mean, even as the fight that we saw, I mean, Caleb Plant had a very good jab, had very good range, and like just trying to stay on the outside and whatnot. And I mean, the fight was competitive. I mean, just Canelo does what Canelo does. He eventually broke down Caleb Plant, landed some really good shots at the end, and was able to stop the fight from going to the scorecards. But it would have been interesting to see the official scorecards had it gone the full 12-round distance.
Some of you may think I'm absurd saying this, but I think Bivol is the first man going in with Canelo for a long time that actually believes he can win the fight. Because if you look at Yildirim, he looked like he was going to have a heart attack on the walk to the ring. I think Billy Joe Saunders just didn't believe in himself. And I saw a montage where Caleb Plant was like congratulating Canelo on his skill in the middle of the fight. I think this is like the first man, maybe even since Golovkin, like the likes of Rocky Field, maybe actually Danny Jacobs, that has really gone in and believed that they can beat Canelo. I think Dimitri Bivol really, really looks up for this fight and really believes in himself. So I'm really looking forward to it.
That's honestly where it all starts with. It starts with the belief and the mentality. Ultimately, you see like who truly believes it and who is just saying it in front of the cameras and in front of reporters. But I mean, there's a difference between saying it and believing it. And ultimately, we'll see what happens come May 7th. If it's actually stepping out on that faith and that belief, or if it was just all talk.
I wouldn't be surprised if he beat Canelo.
Yeah, I agree. I think we kind of discussed that on this platform one time, but you know, Canelo's last X number of opponents, you know, we can question whether or not they went in there really thinking they could win. I think Caleb was one who believed he had the skill set, right? Not necessarily the power to beat Canelo, but I think everybody knew that what the end results would have been, even if we gave him a chance on a skill level. Canelo still, Canelo has the same type of skill set, so if you match in skill for skill, I think anybody could have said Canelo, you can't beat Canelo in his skill set, even though, again, Caleb Plant was giving him problems. But that power carried through. So, yeah, I can agree with that.
And you know what happened, man? They still will make the Triple G and Canelo fight, regardless of the outcome. I don't see it being that the fight couldn't be made and couldn't still draw good revenue. No, I actually disagree with you, see. I think that if Canelo was to lose, he's going to get that rematch right away.
I agree with that.
Because GG already been waiting about 2 years plus to fight Canelo, right? So he can wait another 6 months. They'll run it right back. And GG ain't got no choice but to wait.
If Canelo did lose, what would that do to his stock? And if he lost twice, will he still be the top in the division, or will Bivol shoot up?
So would you be surprised, Matthew, if he lost and he don't fight him again? Yeah, I would be surprised, actually. I would actually be surprised. Because, think about it, right? He's fighting Bivol at, 175? What's the contract to wait for GGG? 168, I'm assuming, right? So if he to go back down to 168 to say I'm gonna go back up to 175, I don't see him doing that. That's a lot. That's a lot on his body. I think if he was to lose hypothetically, right, I think he would stay right there. They'll go through whatever training camp, whatever they have to go through, make the adjustments and try to run it right back. I can see that. I can see that. But I can see him saying, just kind of, it is what it is, and moving back and letting it go. Like, I'm not the size, I'm a weight class. I mean, even with the cruiserweight, if we lost to the cruiserweight, I could have seen that bit as just being one of them where, hey, that's not my size.
Hey, Matthew, do you know Abjit is a good boxer?
What'd you say? I'm sorry. Say again. And Thomas, to answer your question, I think there's so many different ways to look at it, right? Because I think it's in the manner, if let's say Bivol wins, the manner in which he wins, I don't know. I think if he wins, right, automatically up top, the first win is like, oh my God, what happened? You know what I mean? But it gotta be I think it gotta be a clear win, because it's just kind of funny. If you're a pro Canelo fan, fanatic, no matter what happens, you're gonna see that you're gonna say he got robbed or whatever. If you on the other side of the fence, you're gonna say, "Oh, this dude's not the truth." Blah 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 blah. I just think it depends on your perspective, and also how the fight goes. Because, like a point you made earlier about when Timothy Bradley was awarded that victory against Pac-Man, we knew that he didn't win that fight. But at the end of the day, Pac-Man still got that loss, right? So now if they run it back and he loses again in dominant fashion, of course, Bivol stock goes up. Now, it's just about the narrative that people are going to spin, because they're going to say, well, Canelo jumped all the way to 175, he finally competed that weight, blah, 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 blah. He fought somebody that's actually a real threat and he lost. So I think it depends on your perspective and where you stand with Canelo. There's so many different ways to answer that question.
Yeah, I definitely hear you and agree with that.
All right, so it looks like all of the before the bell bouts have ended. The main card has started on DAZN. If you guys want to switch over to the Fight Night broadcast, and then just riding through the rest of the day. So ultimately, looking forward to tonight with Errol Spence Jr. and Chris Van Eerden. I'm going to be that guy and start off this thought. In the unlikely event that Errol Spence Jr. loses.
You talking about Ugas? You talking about Ugas? Or you talking about Conor Ben?
Oh, you're... mentally, I'm all over the place. I'm sorry.
It's one of them nights. It's all good.
But Errol Spence Jr. and YORDENIS Ugas. In the highly unlikely event that Errol Spence Jr. loses to YORDENIS Ugas tonight, does that just torpedo the chance of Spence Crawford happening?
I mean, I don't see the fight happening at that point because Ugas would have all the belts. So what is Crawford fighting Errol Spence for at that point? Similar to like if Crawford had lost his belt to somebody else prior to this event, there would be nothing for Spence to go after. You know what I mean? But it would definitely mess it up, similar to like how, the world wanted to see Wilder and AJ fight. And we never got that fight because, they took losses and stuff like that and they went different directions. So I think it's the same thing.
Yeah, it was certainly not because of lack of trying. At least in that instance, AJ did provide the receipts of he and Eddie Hearn trying to make the fight happen. I mean, for whatever reason, the fight didn't. Oh well. And ultimately, we just continue and we press on with what fights can be made. Now, with another fight that's happening tonight between Batev and Stanionis, being for the WBA welterweight title, do you see either one of those boxers competing and stepping up against any of the other belt holders at the welterweight division at 147?
I don't personally. I don't think either of them two can beat Spence or Crawford. But there's no shame in that because they're kind of special fighters in today's landscape anyway. But I do think that I don't believe they're like terribly old. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But I believe they're still both in their 20s. I do think Crawford and Spence are not going to be in the division too much longer because I'm really hoping this fight's going to happen. And it's not going to happen this year, but maybe the beginning of next year. And then they can be in the mix with Jaron Ennis, who most people think is going to take over. But I don't know if Virgil Ortiz is going to stay at 147. But they can certainly be in the mix with those sort of guys.
Didn't Stanionis take step aside money before? Or am I mixing him up with somebody else?
Stanionis did take step aside money because he was supposed to be next in line to challenge for the what title was that for?
It's the one that Ugas got, WBA.
Right. It was step aside money for that belt, but ultimately he stepped aside and now he's getting a chance at another world title.
And that's the only thing that worries me about the Crawford Spence fight is these dudes who took step aside money actually activating their mandatory because Boots is going to be in IBF for Eliminator, right? And his camp has already said that they're not stepping aside. They want to fight Errol Spence or whoever's holding the IBF title at that time. And what about this other cat? Do they activate it and actually get in the way of Crawford and Spence making the fight? Because no guarantee they're going to take step aside money again. You know what I mean? I don't know how that works.
Hey, so hypothetically speaking, we talking if Ugas beats Spence, right? That's what I'm hearing. So what angle would Spence fight? Would you think Spence will fight Keith? He won't fight. I believe he'll fight Boots before he fight Keith Thurman.
I don't know. I mean, it depends. I think Keith has a higher ranking with the WBC than Boots does. I think Boots' highest ranking out of all those organizations on IBF. So for Spence, I mean, I don't know, because all that's in-house, so PBC can make anything happen that they want to, but...
Right. You got to remember, he got a good relationship. That was his first belt that he was with the IBF. He got a good relationship with the IBF. So what'll happen is, I think Spence will want to show that he's still there. If y'all say hypothetically, if he loses to Ugas, he's gonna take the biggest, toughest fight. You know, I know Spence mentality, how he been.
Yeah, but knowing also how much he hates Keith Thurman, I think he might go to Keith Thurman route. Because remember, he's a body snatcher, and Keith Thurman already showed vulnerability to his body, and he hates that dude. So if he's in that circumstance, I think he'd rather fight Keith.
Yeah, you might be right on. Cause
you know what I'm saying? He'd rather fight Keith and jump the ranking.
Grudge. It's more of a grudge type of match.
Yeah.
With Boots right now. Him and Boots ain't got no type of...
Yeah. I think Boots should just be business. Like, all right, you done called me out. I'm here now. Now let's do this. But with Keith, that's beef. That's like real, you know what I'm saying? Because he remember when Keith was top dog and Keith wasn't paying him no mind. So we here now. So now I'm going to fuck you up.
Yeah, I can see that. But then also what I could see, to be honest, I see him moving up to 54. I don't see Spence going back down to 47. Realistically, I think he would go to 54 after that. I think he'll take a shortcut route and to start making this noise at 54.
Yeah, but how does that work though? Because Jamel's there. You know what I'm saying? So how does that work? The only way that makes sense is if Jamel loses to Castano. You know what I'm saying? And Jamel moves up. You know what I mean? How does that work?
I mean, Spence already kind of said it. It doesn't, that right there doesn't matter to him. I mean, he's going to make that decision himself, so if he decides to go up, then he ain't going to, I don't think he said it. He said if they got to fight, they boys, they can break bread together. So I can see that happening.
All right. First fight of the main card taking place, light heavyweights, 6 rounds. We got Jack Cullen versus Vladimir Belushki.
I'm just letting you know this is going to be very, very one-sided.
Oh, I could tell just by sizing these two up, but I mean, I could tell that Jack Cullen is the favorite, but yeah, it's pretty much just like a appetizer for the start of the main card. I still don't understand why they're trying to make Campbell Hatton happen in the next fight, but I mean, he might have been getting better, but I mean, just from the previous fights I've seen of him, I don't need to see Campbell Hatton fight again.
He actually did look slightly better in his last fight. I don't know if you saw that. That was on the Lawrence Okoli undercard, I think. It was on a Sunday night, so maybe he wasn't watching.
I mean, it's not even that. It's just the fact that I've seen the first 3 or 4 fights of his career, and then especially after the Sonny Martinez card, I didn't need to see anything else from him.
No, on that Lawrence Okoli card, he did look all right, man. He looked all right. It wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad, James. Come on, man.
I mean,
I'm with James.
We all saw the same fight against Sonny Martinez. Honestly, especially against boxers that have predominantly losing records, and you can only box to a decision. That's bad. That is really bad.
Yeah, I remember that, James. We was in the room. Yeah, it ain't look that good, honestly. I think we thought he lost that fight for real, if I remember correctly.
Oh, yeah, the one against Sonny Martinez. Sonny Martinez from Argentina put on a boxing clinic against Campbell Hatton, and even the margin that was turned in on the scorecard, no. I never want to see Campbell Hatton fight again. I really don't.
I don't understand why Campbell Hatton turned professional at 18, because clearly, and I know, as we all know, bodies don't win fights, but you can even see from his frame, he doesn't look like he's mature enough to be a professional boxer. He would have been far better off taking another 3 years in the amateurs and getting some senior experience And maybe, you know, he could have got, because he used to do okay in our like amateur championships. He used to get to like the national semis. I honestly don't know what they're achieving, because the people that he's boxing now, he could learn far better boxing like elite amateurs behind closed doors with no pressure, rather than just like going life and death with these guys, part-time boxers who've had like 7 fights in 10 years and are not really interested, and he's struggling. It's just not doing him any good physically, mentally, whatsoever.
Frankie, about a year ago, I hosted a room called Heirs to the Throne, Children of the Belts. And ultimately in that, like, we were examining, like, children that followed their parents' footsteps into boxing. And ultimately, like, if you look at other boxers that are around, like Campbell Hatton's age, and remembering who their parents are, you have Prince Nassim Hamed's kids that are potentially making a pro debut. You obviously now you see Conor Benn, you see Chris Eubank Jr., you see like all of these, like in essence, it's like a rivalry mainly between the parents, not so much the kids themselves, but seeing like, okay, well, Ricky Hitman Hatton was like a big name in boxing, like he was like the pride of England and things of that nature, and they're trying to fill that vacuum of like who would actually become like the next face or the next name of British boxing. And for right now, that title is still vacant. So, in essence, Ricky Hatton wanted to throw his son Campbell's name in that ring, and seeing what can happen and trying to become like that next name of British boxing. At least of like having one of their children become that name.
Yeah, I agree. There isn't really many up-and-coming stars, but any up-and-coming fighters with that star quality that's like evident anyway at this moment in time. So I think that's why Eddie Hearn in particular is like really trying to push Conor Benn. But the thing is with the UK boxing scene is the promotions are now spread out too thin, so you've got them all on different networks. It's going to make it so much harder to get those domestic fights that build fighters. So I think British boxing, professionally anyway, is in a bit of a bad spot at the moment.
All right. So, I mean, the first round was like fairly dominant for Jack Cullen, but this second round, Belushi is being a little bit more patient, waiting for opportunities to counter Cullen as Cullen comes forward. But honestly, just Belushi just needs to settle down a little bit more. Take what open shots that there are. I mean, like, obviously on Jack Cullen, like, there's great opportunity to do body work and susceptible to overhands. But I mean, just Belushi just needs to settle down and throw him with authority. Yeah, it seems at least in the British Boxing Board of Control that at least for the most part, outside of like title challenges or contenderships, for the most part, there are no 3 judges. It's mainly just the referee that pulls out his notepad from his back pocket and records like the score that he believes happened in that round. Interesting to see that. I mean, definitely in the States, regardless of the fight, we always use 3 judges.
We've had some shocking decisions recently. I don't know if you managed to watch Josh Taylor against Jack Catterall, but Josh Taylor is not a world champion anymore.
We were here for that one, and you just missed me going on a complete just conniption based on the scores that were rendered.
We are the new Germany. I don't know if you remember a fighter called Sven Ottker. I think that's the level of judging we've got now in the UK.
A very good stiff jab just from Jack Cullen right now that kind of sent Vladimir Belushki off kilt a little bit, but I do want to see Cullen like press the action a little bit more. Like he's trying to stay smart in boxing on the outside, but I mean he has moments in which he can pressure and get in some more points.
If hypothetically, I mean, I keep saying this, right? If Spence was to lose to Ugas, right? Am I the only one that feel like he's moving straight up to 54? I don't think he's gonna fight at 47 no more.
Yeah, that would be the smart move to do. It would be to move up to 154, because especially if you look at the frame and the size of Errol Spence Jr., I mean, I would go where would be more natural and more comfortable for you. And I mean, honestly, he looks like he could fit very well at junior middleweight rather than trying to come down to welterweight all the time.
I think the only reason that keeps him at that weight class right now is because of the Crawford fight. Otherwise, I think he would have been up. Well, not only the Crawford fight, but he's trying to collect all the belts, you know. So if he say it was to lose, it wouldn't make no sense. You know what I mean? He had to go start from that point on. He just gonna start. He gonna go to 54. You know, the belts, when it wouldn't make sense for. I don't know. I just don't. For some reason, I'm trying to wrap my mind around him staying at 47, but I just can't see that. If it ain't for the belts, you know how he said it. He wanted all the belts. So.
I heard that Spence be walking around in like the 180s. That's a big old cut. I don't know. I don't know how he gets down to 147.
But certain things happen in certain fights, and that's when the outcome and it changes the landscape in boxing. Because I remember when Antonio Tarver, when he beat Roy Jones, when Antonio Tarver beat Roy Jones, that changed the landscape of boxing. Because you got to remember that put Mayweather #1 pound for pound. After that point, that's when Mayweather started, doing his, getting his record. But if Roy would have beat Tarver that time, and Roy would have been on top, Roy would have been #1 still at that time. Roy would have kept the #1 spot. So I mean, just certain fights, man, and it could change the landscape of things.
Honestly, for what it's worth, in this fight with Jack Cullen and Vladimir Belushki, I currently have a 2-1 in favor of Cullen. Belushi is definitely game and trying to keep it competitive, but doesn't have an answer to negate the stiff jab of Jack Cullen.
Do you feel like Cullen smothers his own work sometimes?
Yes. He certainly does, because he doesn't know how to box on the inside. All he knows is the outside. And I could judge that just by his footwork and by his punch rate. That he knows how to box on the outside, just jabs and straights. But as soon as you start getting the hooks and uppercuts, he has no idea what he's doing. All right, Cullen is doing a bit better in trying to press the action forward, but Beluski is still very game and very resilient. I mean, definitely Jack Cullen's round this one, but it's interesting to see what's happening here. But yeah, at this point, in this final round, Vladimir Belushi definitely needs some knockdowns or a knockout, especially if he wants to win this fight. But so far, Jack Cullen's been using very good use of the ring, height, reach, and ultimately just all Jack Cullen really needs to do is just box to the final bell and just he's won this fight. Oh, so a bit of a correction. It does appear that this is supposed to be a 8-round bout instead of a 6-round bout. So it looks like we got a little bit more time before the end, unless DAZN does have a mistype in their time here.
I'm just tuning into the fight. Who you got winning so far, Brent? James, according to your scorecards. On the 6th round.
According to my scorecard, I currently have it 4 rounds to 1 in favor of Jack Cullen. That's in the purple and white. Belushki's definitely still having like great heart and trying to stay in the fight, but yeah, Jack Cullen's pretty much just boxing very smart, just jabs and straights on the outside, not engaging too much, but honestly, he's boxing to a very dominant decision so far. Belushi does have moments throughout this bout, but for the most part, just the moments they has gets outdone by Jack Cullen just coming back with decent punch accuracy and just very clean boxing.
They're not recording anymore. Should I shut that off?
I'm curious, like, what do these fighters get paid for this fight? Like Cullen and Paluski, like, what's their range? Thank you, sweetheart.
That's actually a really good question. I'll try to research that and try to have that answer for you at some point. I mean, I can imagine it would be maybe like a couple thousand